The first alarm rang at 6:42 in the morning. Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee in the dark control room when the computer screen suddenly filled with red dots. He nearly dropped his mug as he stared at the display. The dots were moving fast, toward Earth, and there were so many of them that they covered half the screen. "Sir, you need to see this," Jake called to his boss, Colonel Danny Wright, who was reading reports at his desk. Danny walked over and looked at the screen. His face went pale. "How many?" Danny asked. "The computer says 9,900 ships, sir. They're about 2 days away from Earth." Danny stared at the screen for a long moment. In all his years working at the North American Air Defense Command, he had never seen anything like this. The ships were huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were coming from deep space, moving in perfect formation. "Get the president on the phone," Danny said. "Right now." Across the country in Washington, President Helen Rodriguez was eating breakfast with her family when her phone rang. The caller ID showed it was the emergency line from NORAD. She answered immediately. "Madam President, we have a situation." Danny's voice was calm but serious. "We're tracking almost 10,000 unknown ships heading toward Earth. They'll be here in about 48 hours. Helen felt her stomach drop. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am. We've checked the data 3 times. These are not natural objects. They're definitely ships, and they're definitely coming here." Helen looked at her husband and children who were still eating and laughing. In 2 days, everything might change forever. "I'll be at the White House in 20 minutes. Set up an emergency meeting with all department heads." Far above Earth, on the space station Terra Station, Captain Ryan Clark was doing his morning checks when his communication system started beeping. He read the message from Earth and felt his heart start beating faster. Ryan had been in space for 6 months, and he had always wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now he knew they weren't. "Attention all crew," Ryan announced over the station's speakers. "This is the captain. We have received word that unknown ships are approaching Earth. This is not a drill. Report to your stations immediately." The crew of Terra Station was small, only 12 people. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. But they were Earth's only defense force already in space. Ryan knew that if these alien ships were hostile, his small station would be the first thing they encountered. In New York City, Dr. Lisa Hamilton was teaching her morning class about the possibility of alien life when her phone buzzed with an emergency message. She read it quickly and felt her hands start shaking. For 20 years, she had studied what alien life might look like. Now she was about to find out. "Class dismissed," she said suddenly. Her students looked confused, but Lisa was already packing her things. "Emergency at the university. We'll continue next week." Lisa drove to her laboratory as fast as she could. The government would need her expertise to understand what was coming. She had written papers about first contact with alien species, but she had never thought it would happen so soon. The alien fleet was led by Admiral Krixtall, a warrior who had conquered 12 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. He stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking at the blue and green planet ahead of them. His intelligence report said the humans were a young species with primitive technology. They had only recently developed nuclear weapons and had barely begun to explore space. Admiral, his second-in-command, Commander Zethun, approached. "Our scouts report that the humans have detected our approach." Krixtall laughed. "Of course they have. We are not trying to hide. Let them see us coming. Let them fear what is about to happen." The Zephyrians were a proud race of warriors. They were tall and strong, with blue-gray skin and eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. For 1,000 years they had been expanding their empire across the galaxy. Every species they encountered either joined them willingly or was conquered and enslaved. "How many ships do the humans have?" Krixtall asked. "Our intelligence says fewer than 100, Admiral. Most are small exploration vessels. They have no real military fleet." Krixtall nodded. This would be easy. The humans would surrender after the first attack, just like most species did. The Zephyrians had brought nearly 10,000 ships and 50 million warriors. It was probably too much firepower for such a primitive world, but Krixtall believed in being thorough. Back on Earth, the emergency meeting was beginning in the White House. President Rodriguez sat at the head of the table, surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and advisors. General Paul Stevens, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was explaining what they knew. "The ships are massive," Paul said, pointing to images on the screen. "Each one is at least 5 miles long. We've never seen technology like this. They're moving faster than anything we thought possible." "Have they tried to communicate?" asked Secretary of State Mary Johnson. "No, ma'am. Complete radio silence. Our attempts to contact them have been ignored." Dr. Lisa Hamilton, who had been called to the meeting as an expert on alien life, spoke up. "In my opinion, their silence is not a good sign. If they wanted to talk, they would have tried to communicate by now. The fact that they're approaching with such a large fleet suggests hostile intentions." President Rodriguez looked around the table. "What are our options?" General Stevens cleared his throat. "Honestly, Madam President, our options are limited. We have about 200 military aircraft that can reach space, but most are designed for short missions. Our orbital defenses consist of Terra Station and a few small satellites. Against nearly 10,000 alien ships, we're completely outmatched." "What about nuclear weapons?" asked Defense Secretary Robert Kim. "We have them, but we don't know if they'll be effective against alien technology. And using nuclear weapons in space could damage our own satellites and space station." The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it. Earth was about to be invaded, and there was very little they could do to stop it. "How long do we have?" President Rodriguez asked. "About 30 hours, ma'am. They'll reach Earth's orbit tomorrow evening." The president stood up. "Then we use every hour we have. General Stevens, mobilize every military unit on the planet. I want our pilots in the air and our soldiers ready. Dr. Hamilton, I need you to work with our scientists to learn everything you can about these aliens. Secretary Johnson, contact every world leader and tell them what's happening. If we're going to face this threat, we'll face it together." As the meeting ended, everyone left with their assignments. But they all knew that tomorrow would bring the greatest challenge in human history. In 30 hours, Earth would discover if humanity was strong enough to survive against an enemy from the stars. Admiral Krixtal stood on his bridge, watching the blue planet grow larger on his screens. He had no idea that the primitive humans below were preparing to fight. In his experience, most species surrendered when they saw the size of his fleet. He expected the humans to do the same. He was about to learn that humans were different from every other species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. They did not surrender easily, and they did not give up their home without a fight. The Admiral had brought 9,900 ships to conquer Earth, but he was about to discover that conquering humanity would be the greatest challenge of his military career. The first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky at exactly 7:15 in the evening. Jake Morrison watched from his control room as the massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Each ship was the size of a small city, and there were thousands of them spreading across the sky. "My God," Jake whispered. Even though he had been tracking them for 2 days, seeing them with his own eyes was terrifying. The ships were black and angular, with strange lights pulsing along their sides. They moved silently through space, taking positions around Earth like predators surrounding their prey. Admiral Krixtal stood on his flagship's bridge, looking down at the blue and white planet below. From space, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. It was hard to believe that 50 billion humans lived on its surface. Soon they would all be under Zephyrian control. "Begin the attack," Krixtal ordered. "Target their military installations first. Show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire." The first plasma beam struck Earth's surface at 7:23 in the evening. Bright green energy lanced down from the alien ships, hitting military bases around the world. The beams were so hot that they turned sand into glass and metal into vapor. In seconds, entire military complexes disappeared in brilliant flashes of light. Colonel Danny Wright was at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado when the attack began. He saw the green light coming down from the sky and dove behind a concrete barrier just as the beam hit the main hangar. The explosion threw him 20 feet across the tarmac, and when he looked up, half the base was gone. "All units, this is command," Danny shouted into his radio. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Get our fighters in the air now." But it was chaos. The alien weapons had destroyed most of the aircraft on the ground. Only a few pilots managed to get their jets airborne before the second wave of attacks hit. Danny watched as Lieutenant Pete Wilson took off in his F-22 fighter, climbing fast toward the alien ships hanging in the sky like black daggers. Pete had been flying military jets for 10 years, but he had never faced anything like this. His radar was going crazy, showing targets everywhere. The alien ships were huge, but they were also fast. As he climbed toward them, green plasma beams shot past his cockpit, missing him by inches. "This is Eagle 1, Pete radioed to base. "I'm engaging the enemy." He fired 2 missiles at the closest alien ship. The missiles streaked through the atmosphere and hit the ship's hull, but they barely scratched it. The alien vessel's shields absorbed the impact like it was nothing more than raindrops. Then the alien ship turned toward Pete's fighter. A plasma beam shot out, brighter than lightning. Pete rolled his jet to the left, but the beam clipped his wing. Alarms started screaming in his cockpit as his aircraft began spinning out of control. "Eagle 1 is hit," Pete radioed. "I'm going down." He managed to eject just before his fighter crashed into a field below. As he floated down in his parachute, Pete looked up at the alien ships and realized that Earth's military was completely outmatched. In New York City, people ran through the streets in panic as alien fighters swooped between the skyscrapers. The small ships were fast and deadly, firing plasma bolts that cut through buildings like hot knives through butter. Dr. Lisa Hamilton was in her laboratory when the windows exploded inward from a nearby blast. She crawled under her desk as debris rained down around her. Through the broken windows, she could see the alien fighters circling the city like metal vultures. Their weapons lit up the night sky, and she could hear people screaming in the streets below. But as Lisa watched, she noticed something strange. The alien ships were having trouble flying in Earth's thick atmosphere. They kept wobbling and adjusting their flight paths like pilots who weren't used to flying in such dense air. Their weapons were powerful, but they seemed designed for fighting in the vacuum of space, not in an atmosphere. On the other side of the country, Captain Ryan Clark was preparing Terra Station for battle. His small crew had armed their station with every weapon they could find, but it wasn't much compared to the alien fleet. As Ryan watched through the station's windows, alien ships began moving toward them. "All crew to battle stations," Ryan announced. "This is it." The first alien ship that approached Terra Station was smaller than the others, probably a scout vessel. Ryan ordered his crew to fire everything they had. Missiles and laser beams shot out from the station, hitting the alien ship from multiple directions. To everyone's surprise, the alien ship's shields flickered and failed. The vessel began spinning out of control, leaking atmosphere through holes in its hull. It crashed into a piece of space debris and exploded in a brilliant fireball. "We got one," Ryan's communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, shouted with excitement. But their celebration was short-lived. 3 larger alien ships were approaching fast, and Ryan knew that Terra Station couldn't survive a direct assault from vessels that size. Down on Earth's surface, something unexpected was happening. In Colorado, Colonel Danny Wright had gathered the surviving pilots from several destroyed air bases. They were hiding in a mountain bunker, planning their next move. "The aliens are powerful," Danny told his pilots, "but they're not invincible. Lieutenant Wilson's crash showed us that their ships have trouble with our atmosphere. And Captain Clark proved that their shields can be overwhelmed." One of the pilots, Major Kate Miller, raised her hand. "Sir, I've been thinking about what I saw during the attack. The alien ships seem to fly in very predictable patterns. They don't adapt to our tactics quickly." Danny nodded. "That's a good observation. It's like they're used to fighting enemies who use the same tactics they do. They're not prepared for unconventional warfare." Another pilot, Captain Jim Parker, spoke up. "My grandfather fought in World War II. He always said that the key to beating a superior enemy is to fight dirty. Use guerrilla tactics, hit and run." "Exactly," Danny said. "We can't beat them in a straight fight, but we might be able to hurt them if we're smart about it." Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory beneath the Pentagon, Dr. Emma Foster was examining pieces of the alien ship that had crashed near Terra Station. The debris had been collected by a rescue team and brought to Earth for analysis. What Emma discovered surprised her. The alien technology was advanced, but it followed principles that human scientists could understand. The aliens used energy shields and plasma weapons, but their computers and electronics worked on similar principles to human technology. "This is incredible," Emma told her assistant, Dr. Greg Taylor. "Their technology is more advanced than ours, but it's not magic. We can figure out how it works." She connected one of the alien computer components to her laboratory equipment. After several hours of work, she managed to access some of the alien data files. "Greg, look at this," Emma called excitedly. "I've broken into their communication system. I can see their battle plans." The information Emma discovered was shocking. The aliens had expected to conquer Earth in less than 24 hours. They had planned to destroy all human military forces, then demand surrender from the world's governments. But their timeline was already falling behind. "According to this data," Emma explained, "they've lost more ships in the first day than they expected to lose in the entire invasion. And look at this casualty report. They've lost over 200 vessels." Greg looked surprised. 200 ships? But we barely got any of our fighters off the ground. "That's the point," Emma said. "They weren't prepared for our atmosphere, our weather patterns, or our tactics. They expected us to fight like they do, with big fleets in open space. Instead, we're using hit-and-run tactics, and it's working." As the first day of the invasion ended, both sides were learning hard lessons. The aliens had discovered that conquering Earth would not be as easy as they had thought. The humans had learned that they could fight back, even against impossible odds. Admiral Crichton stood on his bridge reading the casualty reports with growing anger. He had expected to be accepting Earth's surrender by now. Instead, his fleet was scattered across the planet, dealing with constant small attacks from human forces that seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. "Commander Zethun," Crichton called to his second-in-command, "what is the status of our ground forces?" "Sir, we've established footholds in 12 major cities, but the humans are not surrendering. They're fighting street by street, building by building. Our casualties are higher than expected." Crichton slammed his fist on the control panel. This was not how invasions were supposed to go. Every other species the Zephyrians had conquered had surrendered after seeing the size of their fleet. But the humans seemed to get more determined the more they were attacked. On Earth, President Rodriguez was in a secure bunker beneath the White House, coordinating the global resistance. Reports were coming in from around the world, and while the news was bad, it wasn't hopeless. "The aliens have taken several cities," General Stevens reported, "but they're having trouble holding them. Civilian populations are fighting back with everything they have. Even children are helping by running messages between resistance groups." President Rodriguez looked at the map showing alien positions around the world. "How many of their ships have we destroyed?" "Conservative estimate is about 300, Stevens replied. "Most were shot down by surface-to-air missiles or crashed due to atmospheric problems." 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began, and Admiral Crichton was facing problems he had never encountered before. He stood in his command room, staring at reports that made no sense. His mighty fleet of 9,900 ships had been reduced to fewer than 6,000. The humans were supposed to surrender by now, but instead they were fighting harder than ever. "This is impossible," Crichton muttered, throwing the latest casualty report onto his desk. "We have lost nearly 4,000 ships to a primitive species with no real space fleet." Commander Zethun approached carefully. He had learned not to anger the Admiral when he was in these moods. "Sir, our ground commanders are requesting more support. The humans are using tactics we have never seen before." On Earth, Captain Amy Johnson was proving that humans could be very creative when fighting for their survival. She had taken command of what remained of Earth space forces, which included converted cargo ships, mining vessels, and even tourist spacecraft that had been armed with whatever weapons they could find. Amy's flagship was an old cargo hauler called the Phoenix. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't fast, but it was tough. She had filled it with missiles taken from destroyed military bases and turned it into a flying weapons platform. "Attention all vessels," Amy spoke into her radio. "This is Phoenix, leader. We're going to hit the alien supply convoy in Sector 7. Remember, hit hard and get out fast. Don't try to fight them directly." Amy's fleet consisted of 37 ships of all different types. None of them were real warships, but they were crewed by people who refused to give up. They attacked alien convoys, rescued trapped human forces, and disappeared before the aliens could respond with their heavy ships. The aliens hated these hit-and-run attacks. They were used to fighting big battles between fleets, not chasing small groups of ships through asteroid fields and around planets. The human tactics were considered dishonorable by Zephyrian military standards, but they were very effective. Down on Earth's surface, Major Chris Davis was teaching people how to fight in the ruins of Detroit. The city had been bombed heavily during the first week of the invasion, but the survivors had not given up. Instead, they had turned the rubble into a fortress. Remember, Chris told a group of civilians who had volunteered to fight, the aliens are bigger and stronger than us, but they're not used to fighting in cities. They expect their enemies to stand in open fields and fight fair. We're not going to do that. The group included teachers, shop owners, mechanics, and students. None of them were soldiers, but they were all determined to protect their home. Chris had taught them how to make simple explosives from household chemicals and how to use the city's subway tunnels to move around without being seen. Mrs. Betty Carson, a 65-year-old retired teacher, raised her hand. Major, my grandson says, the aliens have trouble seeing in our smoke and dust. Is that true? Yes, ma'am, Chris replied. Their sensors work differently than ours. Smoke, steam, and even heavy rain can blind them. That's why we set fires and use smoke grenades when we attack. Across town, 16-year-old Tommy Lewis was doing something that would have seemed impossible 3 weeks ago. He was sneaking through alien-controlled territory, carrying messages between resistance groups. The aliens ignored children, thinking they were not dangerous. They were wrong. Tommy crawled through a broken sewer pipe, carrying important information about alien patrol schedules. He had memorized everything because written messages were too dangerous. If he was caught, he would pretend to be looking for food like many other children in the city. Meanwhile, in a hidden laboratory in the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Kevin Roberts was working on something that would change the war. He had been studying captured alien technology for 2 weeks, and he had discovered something important. The aliens used computer networks to coordinate their entire fleet. If I can create a virus that spreads through their communication system, Kevin explained to his assistant, Dr. Nancy White, I might be able to disrupt their coordination. Is that possible? Nancy asked. Their technology is so different from ours. Different, but not completely alien, Kevin replied. They use energy patterns and data structures that follow logical rules. I think I can create a program that will confuse their computers without them realizing what's happening. Kevin had been working 18 hours a day on the project. The virus he was creating would not destroy alien computers, but it would make them give wrong information. Alien ships would receive incorrect orders, supply convoys would go to the wrong places, and commanders would not know where their forces were located. Back in space, Admiral Krickstahl was meeting with his senior commanders. The meeting was not going well. Every commander had bad news to report, and none of them had solutions. The humans refused to fight properly, complained Fleet Commander Vartek. They attack our supply lines, then run away before we can respond. This is not honorable warfare. Honorable or not, it is effective, Admiral Krickstahl replied angrily. We have lost more ships in 3 weeks than we lost conquering the Altarian system, and that took 2 years. Commander Rickstan, who was in charge of ground forces, spoke up. Sir, the human civilians are the problem. In every other conquest, the civilian population surrendered when we defeated their military. But these humans fight even harder when their soldiers are gone. What do you mean? Krickstahl asked. Yesterday, my forces were attacked by a group that included children and elderly humans. They used primitive weapons, but they knew the terrain, and they fought like wild animals. We lost 40 warriors to a group of humans who should not have been able to fight at all. This was completely outside Zephyrian experience. In their culture, only trained warriors fought in battles. Civilians were supposed to stay out of the way and accept whoever won. But humans seemed to think that everyone should fight to defend their world. On Earth, Dr. Emma Foster had made another important discovery. She had been studying more pieces of crashed alien ships, and she had figured out how their shields worked. The aliens used energy barriers that could stop most weapons, but they had weaknesses. The shields are designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, Emma explained to a group of military engineers. But they're not calibrated for our electromagnetic frequencies. What does that mean in simple terms? Asked Colonel Danny Wright, who had survived the first attack and was now helping coordinate the resistance. It means that certain types of radio waves can disrupt their shields, Emma replied. If we modify our radar systems and broadcast on specific frequencies, we can weaken their defenses. Danny smiled for the first time in weeks. Can we build equipment to do this? We're already building it, Emma said. Every television station, radio tower, and cell phone tower on Earth can be converted into a shield disruption system. Aliens won't know what's happening until it's too late. As the third week of the invasion ended, the tide was beginning to turn. Humans around the world were learning to fight in ways the aliens had never encountered. Every city became a battleground. Every citizen became a potential soldier, and every piece of human technology became a weapon. In London, resistance fighters were using the city's famous fog to hide their movements. In Tokyo, they were fighting in the subway tunnels. In Rio de Janeiro, they were using the mountainous terrain to launch surprise attacks. Everywhere the aliens landed, they found humans who refused to be conquered. Captain Amy Johnson's Space Forces had grown to over 200 ships as more civilian vessels joined the fight. They were still no match for the alien fleet in direct combat, but they were making life very difficult for the invaders. Phoenix leader to all ships, Amy radioed during their latest mission. We've confirmed that the aliens are having supply problems. Their ships are running low on fuel and ammunition. Keep hitting their convoys. Dr. Kevin Roberts finally finished his computer virus after 3 weeks of non-stop work. The program was elegant and deadly, designed to spread through alien communication networks like a disease. But unlike a normal virus, this one would not destroy alien computers. Instead, it would make them unreliable. It's ready, Kevin announced to his team. When we release this, the alien fleet will start receiving conflicting orders. Ships will go to the wrong places, supplies will be sent to empty space, and commanders will lose track of their forces. How do we get it into their system? Nancy boy asked. Kevin smiled tiredly. We broadcast it on the same frequencies they use for communication. Once one alien ship receives it, the virus will spread to every other ship in their fleet. President Rodriguez received reports from around the world that filled her with hope for the first time since the invasion began. Human forces were not just surviving, they were starting to win small victories. Alien casualty reports showed they had lost nearly 4,000 ships, while human losses, though heavy, were much lower than expected. The aliens made a mistake, General Stevens told the president during their daily briefing. They planned to fight our military and then accept our surrender. They never planned to fight our entire population. How much longer can we hold out? President Rodriguez asked. At the current rate, we're actually winning, Stevens replied. The aliens are losing ships faster than they can replace them, and their morale is breaking down. 2 months after the invasion began, the war had turned into something Admiral Kriegstall never expected. His mighty fleet of 9,900 ships was now down to fewer than 2,000 vessels. Every day brought more bad news, more losses, and more confusion. The humans were not just fighting back anymore, they were winning. Dr. Kevin Roberts stood in his mountain laboratory, watching as his computer virus spread through the alien communication networks. On his screen, he could see the chaos it was causing throughout the enemy fleet. Alien ships were receiving wrong orders. Supply convoys were going to empty space, and commanders could not contact their forces. It's working better than I hoped, Kevin told Dr. Nancy White as they watched the data flowing across their screens. The aliens have no idea what's happening to their computers. They think their communication problems are caused by equipment failures. The virus had been spreading for 2 weeks now, and its effects were devastating the alien coordination. Ships that were supposed to attack New York were showing up at Los Angeles. Supply vessels meant for the fleet above Europe were arriving, at empty space near Mars. The once mighty Zephyrian war machine was falling apart. On Earth's surface, the resistance had grown into a worldwide army. Major Chris Davis was now coordinating civilian fighters across North America. What had started as small groups hiding in ruins had become organized units that could take on alien forces directly. "Today we take back Chicago," Chris announced to his commanders during their morning briefing. "Intelligence reports show that the alien garrison there is only half strength and has not received supplies in a week." The commanders around the table included people from all walks of life. There was Margaret Torres, a former bus driver who had become an expert in urban warfare. Next to her sat Dr. Alan Price, a dentist who now led a team of explosive specialists. The war had changed everyone, turning ordinary people into fighters. In space, Captain Amy Johnson's fleet had grown to over 800 ships. They were still using converted civilian vessels, but now they were armed with captured alien weapons and protected by modified alien shields. Amy's forces controlled large areas of space around Earth, making it dangerous for alien ships to operate alone. "All ships, this is Phoenix Leader," Amy radioed to her fleet as they prepared for their biggest mission yet. "Today we're going after their main supply depot near the moon. Intelligence says it's guarded by only 50 alien ships." Amy's second-in-command, Captain Brad Wilson, looked worried. 50 alien ships is still a lot, even for us." "Yes, but they're the wrong type of ships," Amy replied with confidence. "Those are cargo vessels with light weapons. Our converted mining ships have heavier armor than they do." The attack on the alien supply depot was a complete success. Amy's fleet destroyed 47 alien ships and captured 3 intact supply vessels full of weapons, fuel, and equipment. The captured supplies would keep the human resistance going for months. But the real victory was psychological. The aliens had lost their main supply depot and they could not replace it. Admiral Kriegstall was running out of ammunition, fuel, and spare parts. His invasion force was slowly dying from lack of supplies. Down on Earth, Dr. Emma Foster had achieved another breakthrough. Working with captured alien technology, she had figured out how to build human versions of alien weapons. The first human-built plasma cannon was tested in a secret facility in Nevada, and it worked perfectly. "This changes everything," Emma explained to President Rodriguez during a secure video call. "We can now build weapons that are as powerful as theirs. Give us 6 months, and we can arm every resistance fighter on Earth with alien-level technology." But they might not have 6 months. Intelligence reports showed that Admiral Kriegstall was planning one final massive attack on Earth's major cities. He was gathering all his remaining ships for a desperate assault that would either win the war or destroy his fleet completely. Admiral Kriegstall stood on his bridge, looking at what remained of his once proud fleet. The humans had reduced his forces to less than 2,000 ships, and many of those were damaged or running low on supplies. His ground forces were trapped in hostile territory, constantly under attack by human resistance fighters. "Sir," Commander Zethun approached with the latest reports. "Our intelligence division has discovered why our communications have been failing. The humans have infected our computer networks with some kind of virus program." Kriegstall slammed his fist on the control panel. "A virus? How is that possible? Our technology is far superior to theirs." "Apparently not superior enough," Zethun replied carefully. "The human virus is very clever. It does not destroy our computers, but it makes them give wrong information. That is why our supply convoys have been going to the wrong places." This news was the final blow to Kriegstall's confidence. The humans had not just matched Zephyrian technology, they had found ways to use it against them. For the first time in his military career, the Admiral was facing an enemy that was more creative and adaptable than his own forces. "Prepare all ships for the final assault," Kriegstall ordered. "We will attack all major human cities at once. Either we crush their resistance completely or we die trying." On Earth, President Rodriguez was meeting with world leaders to prepare for the aliens' final attack. Intelligence had warned them that Admiral Kriegstall was planning to throw everything he had left at Earth's major population centers. "How many ships are we facing?" asked Prime Minister David Clark of Britain. "Our best estimate is about 2,800 alien vessels," replied General Stevens. "It sounds like a lot, but remember that we started this war facing almost 10,000 ships. We've already won the bigger battle." "What's our defensive situation?" asked President Chen of China. "Better than it's ever been," Stevens replied with a slight smile. "We now have over 1,200 armed spacecraft, surface-to-air missile systems that can penetrate alien shields, and resistance fighters in every major city. Most importantly, we have their computer virus spreading chaos through their fleet." Dr. Rachel Moore, who had joined the resistance as a weapons specialist, spoke up from her position at the conference table. "I've been analyzing alien battle patterns for 2 months. They always attack in the same formations and use the same tactics. They're not good at adapting to new situations." "What does that mean for the final battle?" President Rodriguez asked. "It means we can predict what they'll do and prepare countermeasures," Rachel replied. "They'll attack our cities in 3 waves, starting with orbital bombardment, followed by fighter attacks, and finally ground landings. We can be ready for each phase." The battle began at dawn on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Kriegstahl's remaining ships descended toward Earth in perfect formation, just as Dr. Rachel Moore had predicted. But the humans were ready for them. As the alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, thousands of radio transmitters around the world began broadcasting Dr. Emma Foster's shield disruption frequencies. The alien ships suddenly found their protective barriers flickering and failing. "All defensive positions, this is command," General Stevens radioed to forces around the world. "Execute Operation Homecoming. Show them what happens when you attack our home." Surface-to-air missiles launched from hidden positions around every major city. The missiles were armed with warheads designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. Instead of trying to break through alien shields, they were designed to overload the shield generators themselves. In space, Captain Amy Johnson led her fleet of 1,200 ships against the alien formation. But this time, the humans were not using hit-and-run tactics. They were fighting a direct battle, ship against ship, using captured alien weapons and modified human technology. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Amy commanded. "Use their own tactics against them. Show them how real space combat is done." The battle in space was fierce but short. The alien ships, already weakened by months of fighting and supply shortages, could not match the determination and innovation of the human fleet. Within 4 hours, over 600 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. On the ground, Major Chris Davis led the defense of Chicago. The aliens had landed ground forces in Grant Park, expecting to march through the city and accept its surrender. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by thousands of resistance fighters who knew every street and building. "Welcome to Chicago," Chris radioed to his fighters as the aliens began their assault. "Let's show them what hospitality means in our city." The urban battle lasted 3 days. The aliens were better equipped and better trained, but the humans were fighting for their homes. Every building became a fortress, every street became a battlefield, and every citizen became a soldier. By the end of the 3rd day, the alien ground forces in Chicago had been completely destroyed. Similar victories were being reported from cities around the world. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, and dozens of other cities had successfully defended themselves against the alien invasion. Admiral Kriegstahl watched from his flagship as his invasion force was systematically destroyed. In less than a week, his remaining 1,800 ships had been reduced to fewer than 400. His ground forces were trapped or destroyed, his supply lines were cut, and his communication systems were still infected with the human virus. "Sir," Commander Zethun approached with obvious fear in his voice. The surviving alien ships limped through space, their hulls damaged and their crews broken. Of the mighty fleet of 9,900 vessels that had approached Earth with such confidence, only 127 ships remained. They fled through the darkness between stars, carrying with them a story that would shake the foundations of the galactic order. Admiral Kriegstahl was dead. He had chosen to ram his flagship into Earth's orbital defense platform rather than face the shame of total defeat. Commander Vextar, who had once served as the fleet's intelligence officer, now commanded what remained of the invasion force. He sat in his small command chair, staring at the casualty reports that told the story of the most devastating military defeat in Zephyrian history. "Commander," his communications officer, Lieutenant Jareth, approached with obvious fear. "We are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They are demanding a full report on our mission to Earth. Vexitar looked at the message with dread. How could he explain what had happened? How could he tell the leaders of 12 different species that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been crushed by a primitive world that had barely begun to explore space? Tell them we will provide a full report when we reach Council space, Vexitar replied. And Lieutenant, prepare a detailed record of everything that happened at Earth. The galaxy needs to know the truth about the humans. Back on Earth, the celebration was beginning to fade as people realized the enormous task of rebuilding their world. Cities lay in ruins, millions of people had been killed or injured, and much of the planet's infrastructure had been destroyed. But humanity had survived, and they had proven something important to themselves and to the universe. President Rodriguez stood in the ruins of what had once been the White House's Rose Garden. The building had been damaged during the final alien assault, but it was still standing, just like the nation and the world it represented. Dr. Foster, the president called to Emma Foster, who was examining a piece of alien technology that had been left behind. What can you tell me about their fleet? Emma looked up from her work. From what we've learned, Madam President, this invasion force represented almost the entire military capability of the Zephyrian Empire. Our intelligence suggests they committed everything they had to this attack. You mean they can't come back? Not for a very long time, Emma replied. And frankly, I don't think they'll want to. We've shown them that attacking Earth is too dangerous, even for a species with superior technology. Captain Amy Johnson's space fleet was now patrolling Earth's solar system, watching for any signs of alien activity. Her converted civilian ships had been upgraded with captured alien technology, making them more powerful than anything humanity had possessed before the war. Phoenix Leader to all ships. Amy radioed to her fleet. Long-range sensors show no alien activity within 50 light-years of Earth. The enemy has completely withdrawn from this sector. On the surface, Major Chris Davis was helping to organize the massive cleanup and rebuilding effort. The resistance fighters who had spent months learning to destroy alien forces were now learning to rebuild their cities and their lives. It's strange, Chris told his aide, Sergeant Kelly Brooks, as they surveyed the ruins of downtown Chicago. 3 months ago, we were just trying to survive each day. Now we have to figure out how to build a whole new world. The war had changed humanity in ways that would last forever. Children who had carried messages through dangerous streets now had a confidence and maturity far beyond their years. Adults who had been teachers and shop owners had become skilled fighters and tacticians. The entire species had been transformed by the experience of fighting for their survival. Dr. Kevin Roberts, whose computer virus had crippled the alien fleet, was now working on a different project. He was trying to decode the alien technology and adapt it for peaceful purposes. The knowledge gained from captured alien ships could advance human civilization by centuries. We've learned more about advanced physics in the last 3 months than we learned in the previous 100 years, Kevin explained to a group of scientists. The aliens inadvertently gave us the keys to technologies we never dreamed possible. Meanwhile, Commander Vexitar and his surviving ships had reached the edge of Zephyrian space. The journey home had taken weeks, and during that time, Vexitar had prepared the most difficult report of his military career. He had to explain to his superiors and to the Galactic Council how an advanced civilization had been defeated by a species that most of the galaxy considered primitive. The first meeting was with the Zephyrian High Command. Vexitar stood before a council of the Empire's most senior military leaders, all of whom had expected to hear about another easy victory. Instead, they were about to learn about the most catastrophic defeat in their history. "Report, Commander," ordered Supreme Marshal Krextos, the highest-ranking officer in the Zephyrian military. "Supreme Marshal," Vexitar began, his voice steady despite his fear. "The invasion of Earth has failed. Of the 9,900 ships and 50 million warriors we sent to conquer the human homeworld, only 127 ships and approximately 20,000 personnel survived to return." The silence in the room was deafening. Supreme Marshal Krextos stared at Vexitar as if he had spoken in an alien language. "That is impossible," Krextos said finally. You are telling me that a species with primitive technology destroyed 99% of our invasion force? Yes, sir. The humans proved to be unlike any enemy we have ever encountered. They do not fight for honor or conquest like we do. They fight for survival, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. Vextar spent the next 6 hours explaining everything that had happened at Earth. He described the human tactics that the Zephyrians had never encountered, the way entire civilian populations had joined the fighting, and the remarkable adaptability that had allowed humans to turn captured alien technology against its creators. The humans have a saying, Vextar concluded. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with extinction, they became more creative and more determined than we thought possible. Every setback made them stronger. Every loss made them more united. The Zephyrian High Command was forced to accept the truth. Their mighty empire had been humbled by a species they had underestimated. The news would have to be shared with the Galactic Council, and eventually with all the civilizations of the galaxy. When the Galactic Council convened to hear Vextar's report, representatives from dozens of species gathered to learn about the failed invasion of Earth. The council chamber was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all of whom had heard rumors about the disaster that had befallen the Zephyrian fleet. Vextar stood before the assembled representatives and began his testimony. He spoke for hours, describing every aspect of the war and explaining why the humans had been victorious. The species known as humanity possesses certain characteristics that make them uniquely dangerous, Vextar explained. They are highly adaptable, extremely creative under pressure, and completely unified when facing an existential threat. More importantly, they do not follow the conventional rules of warfare that most civilizations accept. Ambassador Thexlin of the Altarian Republic raised a tentacle to ask a question. Commander, are you suggesting that we should fear this primitive species? I am suggesting that anyone who considers attacking Earth should reconsider, Vextar replied firmly. The humans are not content to simply defend themselves. They learn from every battle, adapt every piece of technology they encounter, and never forget an enemy. They turned our own weapons against us, infected our computers with viruses we couldn't detect, and fought us with tactics we had never seen. The council chamber erupted in discussion as representatives from different species debated what Vextar's report meant for the galaxy. Some suggested that Earth should be avoided entirely, while others argued that the humans might become a threat to other civilizations. There is one more thing the council should know, Vextar said, quieting the debate. The humans are now in possession of our technology. They captured hundreds of our ships, and they have been reverse engineering our weapons and shields. When they are ready to venture into space in large numbers, they will be far more advanced than they were before our invasion. This news caused an even greater stir among the council members. A species that had just proven it could defeat a superior enemy was now armed with advanced technology and the knowledge of how to use it. Ambassador Irel Khan of the Cosmic Federation spoke for many when she said, "Perhaps we should consider offering friendship to the humans rather than conquest. A species that can destroy a Zephyrian invasion fleet might make a valuable ally." Vextar nodded. "That would be wise, Ambassador. The humans have shown that they can be generous to those who treat them with respect, but they are absolutely ruthless to those who threaten their world." As the council session ended, Vextar knew that his report had changed everything. The galaxy would never again see humanity as a primitive species to be ignored or conquered. The humans had earned their place among the stars through blood and determination. Back on Earth, humanity was beginning to explore the alien technology they had captured. Dr. Emma Foster and her team had unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel, advanced energy weapons, and shield technology.